I do want to welcome everybody to the 2024 Distinguished Career Awards. My name is Aaron Seacott. Very proud to be the principal here at Needham High School. For 33 years now, the Needham community has honored graduates who have gone on to great work in their fields. From the beginning, these presentations of awards have happened right in front of the junior class, with the goal of inspiring you and hopefully opening your mind to the opportunities ahead. What that really means is for over 3 decades, Needham High School juniors have sat in this very auditorium for this ceremony and been inspired by the graduates before them. Someone sitting in this audience right now may very well be sitting in front of a future group of juniors up on this stage talking about your accomplishments. That means you have a tremendous chance to impact the world around you. Begin that work now. Focus on it now. You, as a result, will have the same kinds of success that our esteemed guests have had as well. As an audience today, let their successes, let their frustrations, let their lessons guide you into your future. And while you're at it, just simply enjoy some of the amazing stories that you're going to hear tonight. To the honorees and to their families, I welcome you and want to offer my heartfelt congratulations. It truly is an honor to be chosen from a group of many thousands of graduates, the majority of whom are doing some really incredible work around the world. So congratulations to each of you for being selected. I also want to thank the Distinguished Career Award Committee for their work, and in particular, I want to thank Allison Borelli, who will be serving as the Master of Ceremonies today, following our musical opening, and who almost single-handedly, some days it feels like, makes this event happen each year. Thank you, Allison, and to the entire...
Good morning, class of 2026, and welcome to the George A. Dennett Distinguished Career Awards Program. As Mr. Seacott said, my name is Allison Borelli. Some of you know me as Anthony's mom up there. I am a graduate of Needham High School, class of 1994. I'll spare you the math, but it's been 30 years since I graduated. We do have a reunion this year. And 31 since I sat in this very auditorium and listened to 3 other distinguished alum. Some of their photos hang in the back of the auditorium today. I would like to welcome back to the high school today's award recipients, Reverend Robert Gray, Elizabeth Hutter, and David Schumacher, who's accepting the award on behalf of his brother, Evan. I'd like to welcome their families and friends, and thank you all for being here today. I'd like to recognize a few special people in the auditorium. We have some members of the school committee, Dr. Barr, Ms. Lee, Ms. Scatcherd, Dr. Gudetans is here, and Gay Ellen Dennett, the daughter of George Dennett, the founder of this wonderful program. Since 1990, we have presented this award to nearly 100 deserving recipients in front of that year's junior class. Our former winners encompass a variety of careers, from law enforcement, entertainment, entrepreneurs, philanthropists. We even had an astronaut and a clown. So there are many ways these alumni have distinguished themselves in their careers. One of our more recognizable winners is our past governor, Charlie Baker, who was the class of 1975. We have several award winners in the audience today, and please be sure to check our website at nhsdca.com to see the complete list of winners and see if there's anybody there that you know or might relate to. And as Mr. Seacott said, who knows, one day you might be sitting up on this stage receiving your very own award. And that brings us to why we're here today, and that's to celebrate these NHS alumni who have distinguished themselves in their chosen careers. They will share their stories with you, how their time at Needham High School impacted them and helped them get to where they are today. To the junior class, this might seem just like an hour to miss something, but I promise you, you will learn something, gain a nugget of information, and hopefully become inspired. Please take the time to listen to what your classmates and the speakers have to say, and there will be plenty of time at the end for questions. And with that, I'm going to introduce your classmate, James.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to introduce Reverend Robert Gray, a man whose journey from being one of the first medical students at Needham High School in 1967 to becoming the chaplain for the Patriots and the Red Sox showcases his resilience and dedication to helping others. Reverend Gray's story is one of service, mentorship, and dedication. As one of the first 9 medical students to attend Needham High School, Reverend Gray faced the unique challenge of being a black student in a predominantly white school. Though he didn't face overt racism, he was always aware of his role and purpose, coming to Needham for an education that would shape his future. One day in the NHS library, a career pamphlet on probation sparked his interest and set him on a path that would change countless lives. After leaving NHS, Reverend Gray pursued a career in probation, eventually leading the juvenile probation department at the courthouse, where he made an incredible impact on young lives. Many of those he helped have returned years later to thank him, crediting him for turning their lives around, a testament to the power of mentorship and guidance. Reverend Gray's dedication to using his gifts to help others succeed continues today in his role as chaplain for the Red Sox and Patriots, and as a spiritual guide to the athletes. What I find personally inspiring about him and his life experience is his willingness to use his experiences and wisdom to do something great for others and his community. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Robert Gray, an individual whose contributions extend far beyond his accomplishments into the lives he's changed and the community he continues to inspire.
Wow. It's amazing being back here and seeing how small this place became from when I was here. Thank you for having me here today. It's a blessing. I know I have a few minutes, so I'm a preacher. You never give a preacher an open mic and tell him to say a few words. So I'm going to so I make sure I'm obedient. You know, it's interesting you mentioned Charlie Baker because as chaplain for the Celtics, I brought some of the Celtics to the church to talk to about 275 young people. And Charlie Baker was there. And although we were taking care of business, he found out I was a Needham grad. And of course, the conversation for the rest of the night went to Needham High School. That's the kind of impact that this school has had on some people. But I just want to say, in 1967, as a Medco student, I used to have to get up about 20 past 6 every day, and because I had to be out to catch the bus. And the bus came between 7:05 and 7:12. Now, sometimes it came early, and that was on me, because you had to be there. But at first, everyone says, didn't you mind getting up so early every day, when if you went to school down the street, you could get up just about when school begins? And I said, well, you know, in the beginning, I said, why am I doing this? And it became evident why I was doing this, because when I graduated and went to college, you know, I don't know whether you still have to do a documented paper here to graduate. You used to have to do a paper. So what you had to do was you had to choose an author, and then you had to read 3 books by the author, you had to read 3 books about the author, and you had to write a 12 to 15 page paper in order to graduate. And I learned to do that. You learned about image, you learned about margins and all those things, and I didn't really think it meant that much until I went to college. And then I realized that when I went to college in 1970, we had just really become black. We had been colored, we had been Negro. But we went there, so we had kids from all over the place. And when I realized that when I got there, a lot of those kids from the schools that they came from across the country, they did not know how to do those kind of papers. So I had something that I could share with them that I got here. And I realized how big that was. I just assumed everybody was doing the same thing. So it was a real blessing. I said, wow, I really did learn something at Needham High School. I mean, I learned. I didn't know I was learning it, and sometimes that's the best way. You don't know what you don't know sometimes. And I came, and when I went to school, I was able to show other students how to do that, which was a big thing in college. But so I had to be on the bus. I had great teachers here. I have a teacher that I'm still in contact with now, Ani Almquist. He was my math teacher in the 10th grade. Got an A- in algebra. I don't know what he was smoking. But I got an A-. So he is definitely my man. He's on speed dial even now. But I had Ani Almquist and two teachers, Charlie Hooker and John McKay. We used to go over to the Pollard or the Newman, whichever. We used to play basketball, and then they would ride me home. I mean, it was one of those kind of community type things. And it was a real blessing. But, you know, I didn't realize really the education that I got until time went on. You realize time is ticking. At the Garden, when I'm at the Garden, I do a chapel at the Garden before every game for both teams. So if Golden State's in town, I do it for Golden State and the Celtics. And when my guys go there, they do it. And I sit there and I look up and before the game, and they have a countdown clock. And at 90 minutes on the clock, it starts counting down. And when it hits 0, that's it. And I was sitting there one day and I said, you know, something is really interesting because that's really how our life is. We're on a countdown clock. That, you know, you only get so much time to do certain things. You're only going to be here so long. And then you're going to say, wow, that went fast. When you go to college, you're going to meet people and you're going to promise that you guys are going to be friends and you're going to be great friends for years and years and forever and ever. Then you're going to graduate and you're going to go your separate ways. It's on the countdown clock. So I tell people, make the most of the time that you have. Understand the fact that this won't last forever. And one day you'll miss it. I know you might not think so now, but one day you'll miss it. One day you'll say, boy, you get together with folks and say, remember when? Remember when we used to do this, and remember when we do that. And for some people, this is going to be the happiest time of your life. Your memories, your friends that you met. So it's really interesting. So I just wanted to share with you the fact that you guys are really blessed. You wake up in the morning, you come to school, you get educated, and you get to build a future. Now, how many people here know what they have an idea of what they want to do or what they want to be when they go on beyond? Raise your hand high. You know what you want to do. You know what your goals are. Now, you might not know what your goals are. Well, who has an idea of what they want to do? Raise them nice and high. All right, somebody just yell out, what's one or two things you want to do? Everybody smile and look at me. Somebody, what's something you might want to do? What is it? Okay, something else. Okay, all right. Those are good things. Now, how many people know who they want to be when they grow up? Who do you want to be? You know, that's a separate question. Who do you want to be? Because careers come and go, right? Whatever you want to do. I'm working with athletes there who you know, they're there for a little while and then they're not. And the biggest thing I try to get them to understand is, where do you go from here? But what's really important is more important than what you want to do, is who do you want to be? What kind of integrity do you want to have? Who do you want to be able to bless? What do you want your legacy to be? Who do you want to be? When people think of you, what do you want them to think? See, that's who you want to be. And what's important is the fact that that is much more important than what you do. So I simply just want to leave you with the fact that now is the time to build that who you want to be. Now's the time to work on that. Now's the time to make sure that you're walking with integrity, that you make sure you're walking in kindness. How many people here know someone that's just not a kind person? Raise your hand. Oh, the hand, whoa. Put your hand down. So that tells you who you don't want to be. So what's important is that you figure out who you want to be. The last thing I will say, next to last thing, is if you can get a mentor, someone, you can have a mentor that you meet with, and you can have unofficial mentors. Unofficial mentors is to look and see somebody who's doing and being exactly the way you want to be. See how they're doing it, and you do it too. You fit it into your life. So thank you for letting me come today and just share a couple of things. And last thing I will say is, as we go, we just started the season the other night, and if you think that the Celtics are going to do it again, just put your hands together. Thank you so much.
I'd next like to introduce Mia. Would you like to come up?
Hello everyone, my name is Mia Chin and I'm a fellow junior here at Needham High. Today I'm going to talk about someone who has truly found the meaning of follow your passions. She has not only excelled in her career as a clinical psychologist, but she has also flourished in the field of ballet with her passion for dance like me. Dr. Elizabeth Hutter has continuously shown the meaning of following your dreams by earning her doctorate in clinical psychology and becoming the principal at New Ballet School in San Jose, California. Graduating from high school, Dr. Hutter established the need for change in the dance industry. She saw the flaws and invisible guidelines that every dancer feels they must follow. Now, at her studio, she is breaking down the negative barriers of the dance world and especially the harsh stereotypes of ballet that she grew up with. She enforces a positive environment and making her studio a welcoming place for people of all age, race, gender, orientation, and body type. On the side of all of this, Dr. Hutter follows her interests as a psychologist in various hospitals, as well as having numerous clients of all ages, and especially teenagers like us. Her strong understanding of our teenage lives and constant optimistic support is what causes her to exceed in her career path as both a psychologist and dance teacher. Something I love about her is that she believes in striving for excellence rather than perfection, and reminds everyone that she talks to that this message can be applied in any field of talent, whether it's in education, sports, or hobbies. She influences others to reach for the stars and do what makes them happy, and truly lives out her passions with the gratitude of helping others. Her drive and motivation to change the growing world of dance is evident, and is always putting her best foot forward for everyone she encounters. And something I learned from her is that having a love for something is just the motivation you need. As she likes to say, keep the pilot light on. No winds, rain, or snow can knock it out. And it may seem hard to be successful in fields where it sparks mainly our interest. I mean, we're always told to follow our dreams or do what our heart tells us. But how are our wildest dreams supposed to lead us to a profit-making and happy career and lifetime, especially in the harder fields? Well, Dr. Hutter clearly knows the answer to this. So everyone, let's give it up for Dr. Hutter.
Thank you, Mia. I was inspired talking with you a few weeks ago. It is an honor to follow the eloquence of the wise Reverend Gray to share a podium with Mr. Schumacher, speaking of the bright light and entrepreneurial genius of his brother Evan. And I have to thank conductor Vanderwood. I don't know if he's still here, and his talented musicians in the chorale. That was just such a beautiful performance. Oh, I see some of you are still there. You have a beautiful blend. It was a rousing performance, thank you. I was where you were almost 40 years ago, and that has a lot to do with what I'm here for now. It's an incredible feeling being here, here in this auditorium, where we held our own concerts and heard lectures, and we had auditions for our musicals and plays. I must say, though, that even more humbling than receiving this beautiful award is being in this room with all of you, you juniors in high school. I would much rather listen to each of you and hear where you are now. Yes, you're on the path of an exciting, sometimes nerve-rattling brink of growing into whomever you're going to choose to be. But who you are right now really is just right. You already have two things that you need to develop your own distinguished careers: your spark, what's inside you, and each other, what's out there. You do need both of these. Your spark might be something you're good at, might just be something you're curious about. It's that feeling of being your authentic self, or that feeling you have when you feel really alive or purposeful. And the community will, wherever you go, whatever you do, you'll always be part of an interactive community. You're going to be hearing a lot this coming year about the importance of standing out. Whether you're filling out applications for associate degrees or four-year colleges, or if you choose to take a gap year or two, or if you're going to go straight into a vocation or apprenticeship. But contributing to and being supported by a community is vital on any scale. Each of you has something to give to or inspire another, even in this community, this great class of 2026 community that you're in. I've long said that I'm so glad I went to Needham Public High School because I was among such a range of interests and perspectives. So gaining experience in the importance of being ethical in your work, fair and respectful, and compassionate to yourselves and to each other, these can't be underestimated. And with those two things, your spark and your responsibility within your community, work hard at whatever you love doing that serves some service. It holds some sense of service to the world or the environment or the galaxies, if you were into astronomy, or to other people, so that you have a compelling sense of purpose in your career. That matters, no matter what you end up doing. When I was invited to come speak to you about my career and how it evolved, it got me thinking it actually had its beginnings right here. Of course, I didn't know it at the time. Before that, both of my parents are prime examples of can-do spirits and dedicate to whatever they put their minds to. Then here at Needham High, I realized I was dedicating as much to orchestra, madrigal singers is what we called our chorale now, and the musicals as I did to algebra, chem, and Mrs. Weeks' English class. I had some great mentors here. Our French teacher, Mr. Burgess, our music director, Papa Narducci, Principal Skinner, of course, our track and field coaches. Here is where I created my workday, that balance in your regular workday of academics, physical activity, and the arts. It was here that trained that. I got used to it. I liked it. I also really loved my ballet classes after track practice at Paulette's down the street. Some of your parents might have gone there. Through grad school, internship, and my postdoc fellowship, I didn't feel completely whole unless I was engaged in some degree of dancing on the side, whether it was teaching or competing in ballroom or taking ballet classes. There was a kind of productive balancing of career and dance that I found helped bring focus to the other. When I was working on my dissertation, that balancing act had to adapt a bit. When I got married and had 3 daughters, the balancing act had to adapt a bit. We moved out to California. I was fully focused on raising my young family. Another nice thing about a career in psychology is that there is such a range of options within it. Psychologists can do clinical work, research, teaching or academics, consulting, working in labs, administration, and they can do it full-time or part-time in a range of settings: hospitals, clinics, private practice, courtrooms, basketball courts. The work also, this is something else I like about it, the work shifts scope in response to whatever's going on in the community that you have specialized to treat, or in the world. The pandemic, for example, changed an awful lot in mental health care. New opportunities also came up for me that I didn't plan, I didn't expect. I started teaching ballet where my daughters were enrolled in classes when they were very young. Then there was a span of years where it was ballet's turn to take the helm in my working hours. By the time my daughters were all in school, I was teaching 6 days a week. I got certified in the American Ballet Theater's national training curriculum, and I became principal of New Ballet San Jose's pre-professional school. And I got insights into another need that I felt compelled to address, mental health within the dance world. So I studied sport and performance psychology, got certified in that, and initiated the first wellness program on the West Coast to incorporate performance enhancement psychology within a professional company and a pre-professional training program. A word gets out quickly in this surprisingly small world of dance. So this grew into consulting work. And then finally, instead of trying to balance my career and my dance interests, I got to combine them into what has become my dream career. I get to work with professional dancers, choreographers, directors, company managers all over the globe. I also get to work among and I represent psychologists pioneering this new field of performance psychology. I work in administration, creating guidelines for ethical practice of performance psychology. And I've called into play another long-standing interest, writing and editing. Mrs. Weeks would be so proud. I made sure to time these different commitments so that they would work secondarily to whatever the needs were of my family at the time. Fortunately, I timed it so that when my youngest, who's here today, I'm so grateful, when she went off to college, all of these different pieces of my career kind of blossomed and bloomed and are informing each other. I couldn't be happier. I'm currently at the ballet full-time. Much of the executive and consulting work I do is remote. Writing and editing is on my own. So I have the flexibility to come back to Needham from California, visit my mom, 2 of my daughters, and this amazing place. But this was not planned out in my 30s, let alone when I was a 16-year-old junior at Needham High. The specialty of performance psychology didn't exist then. Whatever careers you may end up in might not exist now. You also don't have to be the best at what you're doing in order to be successful at it. I'm living proof of that. I certainly was not the best. Maybe at anything. But I didn't get the best grades here in high school. That would go to John O'Brien. I didn't ever expect to get first place on the track team because we had Lisa Horahan on our team. And she did every event. And she was so fun-loving and inclusive. She really inspired the rest of us to push ourselves, do our best, so we were happy with however we placed. People like Lisa made it be a great team. I surely wasn't the best dancer. I think that would probably go to Laura Sargent. No, I wasn't the most popular either. I think Christine Papetti-Dedek is in the running for that one. And yes, these people did go on to be amazing athletes, dancers, brainiacs, whatever John's doing, and community leaders. That's awesome. I'm so proud of them. But I'm really grateful to have been among them, been their classmate. So you might not be great at something. You may even have heard feedback along the way that you're not so great at something. But if there's something you love and you find it meaningful, have faith in that meaningful purpose and let that drive you. If you're here at Needham High, you already are lucky enough, as the good Reverend said, to have a solid foundation of education. So the message here is you don't need a plan now. You owe it to yourself to pay attention and listen to what sparks you and what you're curious about. Then dedicate fully and ethically. When you're doing something you love, working hard at it comes easily. That doesn't mean it's always easy work. It just means the working hard tends to flow if you're working in something you love. From there, just keep a flexible mindset so that you too can stay on your toes and adapt to the things that are most important to you. You'll find, or you'll make, your own opportunities. Just trust that right now, you're right on track. So go Rockets. Thank you for listening today.
Our last speaker is Diego.
Today, I want to tell you about Evan Schumacher, someone who once sat in the same classrooms as us, walked these same hallways, and went on to do some truly incredible things. Evan graduated from Needham High School in 1987. although he sadly passed away in 2015 at the age of 47 after battling with cancer. But his life offers lessons for all of us. You know, Evan wasn't a straight A student, he was a solid B student, but what set him apart was his work ethic, social skills, and ability to connect with people. He played sports like the rest of us, like football, lacrosse, racquetball. He worked jobs and stayed close to his friends. After high school, Evan studied at Northeastern University and later earned a business degree from Northwestern in Chicago, where he made lifelong friends and valuable business connections. His passion wasn't just in technology, but in business, and he had a unique gift for seeing how technology could improve old industries. This ability to see opportunities and take risks allowed him to grow and sell his business to even bigger companies. Here's what I think we can all take away from Evan's journey, what I'll try to remind myself too, since I'm 16, like many of us. You don't need to have your whole life figured out right now. Evan wasn't the top student, and he didn't always know where life would take him. But he worked hard, built relationships, and stayed open to new opportunities. Success isn't just about how smart you are. It's about being curious, asking questions, and not being afraid to take risks when the moment feels right. So, for all of us still figuring things out, focus on doing your best today, whether it's in the classroom, in the field, or hanging out with your friends. Learn from everyone around you, build real connections, and stay open to new possibilities. Just like Evan, we have no idea where those skills might take us, but they can make all the difference down the line. Now I'd like to introduce Evan's brother, David.
Wow. Good morning, juniors. Good morning, juniors. It's so great to be here today. It is so great to be back in the high school. I was class of 1989. Great to be back in the same auditorium where we put on Guys and Dolls a million years ago, and just great to be back in Needham. I have a junior myself, not at the high school, but he would be mortified, I think, if he saw me up here today. But I think he would listen because he'd know that what I was talking about was his uncle Evan, my brother Evan. My brother Evan, who was class of 1987, and grew up here, and what a great childhood we had. And thank you for having us here today. Thank you to the committee. It's so great to be up here with wonderful recipients, with Reverend Gray, Dr. Hutter. Really wonderful to be here. We grew up in Needham. Like all of you, we had a wonderful childhood. Needham was such a great place to grow up. We grew up over on Country Way. Before it was Country Way, it was just another neighborhood filled with kids, filled with dogs off leash. We would play football, we would play capture the flag, we'd ride our bikes till all hours of the day. Really just a wonderful place to grow up. My brother Evan had a typical childhood. He loved sports. He played football, he played lacrosse. He was a junior champion in racquetball. No one plays racquetball anymore. Some people play squash, but there was a club over on Highland Ave where he played racquetball. He was a wonderful player, and Evan was very social. He had lots of friends, so many friends that he's still in touch with for many years, and I'm still in touch with today. Their favorite pastime was to come over our house in the basement and practice the latest wrestling moves on me until I cried, and my mom heard him and kicked him out and made him go home. I idolized my brother. Whatever he did, I did. He played football, I played football, he played lacrosse, I played lacrosse. He was very protective as a big brother. He looked out for me, tried to keep me out of trouble. One of my wayward moments, right around when I was your age, actually, he found a pack of cigarettes that I had ended up with in my room. And my brother wasn't too happy with that. He flushed them down the toilet. He beat me up pretty good, and he told me if I ever catch you doing that again, this is going to be the least. So he looked out for me. But one thing that Evan wasn't, and you heard a little bit about this from Diego, was Evan wasn't a great student. Smart kid, very smart kid, but he didn't really apply himself back in high school. He was a solid B student, maybe the occasional B plus here and there. He was smart, but he was more interested, I think, at the time in playing sports, hanging out with his friends, chasing girls, than in his studies. He got in trouble. The thing we mostly heard from the teachers was that he was talking too much in class. But still, Needham really served him well. Growing up here and coming to the high school, he definitely received an excellent education. He learned how to study. and he interacted with so many great people. Because Evan had so many friends, and friends came from a lot of different backgrounds. Their parents were police officers and firemen, running the hardware store and teachers. And what it taught him was to interact with lots of different people and get along with everyone. And that's something that really ended up helping him when he developed an interest in business. And that's where Evan's life journey took him. Because after leaving Needham High School, he went to Northeastern University, where our dad was the dean of the pharmacy school. But Evan was developed an interest in business. Now, Northeastern these days is hard to get into. Back then, it wasn't. It was, I think, what you call a safety school. You don't say safety, a likely school back then. But Northeastern was great for Evan because it had this co-op program, where you'd take one term every year in school and you'd work. You'd get a paid internship and you'd work in the real world. And so Evan had great co-ops. He worked for a big accounting company. He worked for Mobil Oil. He worked for all sorts of, he worked for Reebok. And what he learned was that he really thrived in the business setting. Evan thrived when he could work with a team and be out there trying to sell something, working with people, getting out from sort of behind his desk, and not having to have his head in the book. And that was really a spark that, that ignited within him and took him on to great things. So after leaving Northeastern, he went to Los Angeles, and he worked for a couple of sneaker companies, and he really enjoyed that. He loved selling. He traveled all over the world. He traveled to the Far East, where the shoes were made. And he developed a lot of interests and passions in business, and that was something that he learned that he was really good at. And those contacts that he made through work over the next few years, that helped him get into Northwestern Business School. Northwestern is, he couldn't have dreamed of going to Northwestern, when he was sitting here where you guys are. Evan would be, if I had told Evan in 1987 that he'd be receiving this award, he'd have laughed in my face. He'd have been the most surprised person in the world. No teacher called him the most likely to succeed. That wasn't him back then. But he had a great career because he connected with people. And he got into Northwestern Business School, not because he had an amazing transcript, but because he had a lot of success in business. He made a lot of connections, and he found his own path. So he gets to Northwestern, okay? And he develops an interest in a new business field. And that business field is called logistics, transportation and logistics, which is a popular field now, but it was new back then. Basically, all it means is how do companies get their stuff, whatever it is that they make, into the stores? So that the sweatshirt that you're wearing, wherever it's manufactured, how does it get from the manufacturing plant ultimately to the stores where people buy it? And Evan became very interested in this. He was particularly interested in it because the internet was just coming online around this time. And Evan was always good at seeing the next big thing. He realized that the internet was going to change people's lives in many ways, and it was definitely going to change the way companies did business, especially in this field of transportation and logistics. It'd be easier to track their goods from place to place. So Evan came up with a business idea for a company that would sell software that helped companies track their stuff. And he came up with that idea while he was at Northwestern Business School. He was selected to present his business idea at an entrepreneurship conference. And while he presented his business idea, someone who was sitting in the audience that day was an investor, came up to him afterwards, said, "I love your idea." And he gave him $250,000 to start his first company right on the spot. And Evan was on. That was his first company, and he loved creating things. He was an entrepreneur. He loved being the boss. His friends called him Mr. CEO. He didn't like to take orders from anybody. But he loved creating businesses. And that was Evan's first company. It was called Solarix. Started in Chicago, then he came back to Boston because he missed being with his family. He missed his friends from Needham otherwise. And Solarix ended up being a great success. They attracted $50 million in investor funding, employed 150 people, had revenues of about $20 million, and this was when he was in his 20s. That was a very successful company. Evan sold that company, and he was hooked on being a tech entrepreneur. After Solarix, Evan created 3 additional companies. He created EveryPoint, which was kind of a sports ticker, which was kind of new back then, where you could find scores to any game, follow your teams on your phone. No one was really doing that yet. That was Every Point. Sold that company. Then he created Going.com. Going.com was a social network long before there was Facebook or Instagram. And the idea behind Going.com was connecting with people, but not just connecting with people and typing behind a screen, but finding out where people are going. What events are happening in the city? Where are you going tonight? And they would connect, and they would meet, and it was sort of a social network, and that ended up being sold to AOL.com. And then Evan's final company was called Open Mile. And at Open Mile, he returned back to his roots of transportation logistics, which is what he was really passionate about. Open Mile was kind of like an Uber for trucks, okay? So if you had a truck that had, say, half a load, but it still had another half that it could fill up, through Open Mile, website that he created, that truck could connect with companies that needed to sell their goods, and if a company wanted a shipment that was going the same place that truck was going, could fill up the other half of that truck. So it connected the trucks with the companies. That was Open Mile. Great idea. Open Mile ended up being sold to an international company called Echo Global Logistics, and then Evan became the chief commercial officer for that company, and he had really arrived. I think Evan was successful, not just because he was smart, but it was for his other intangible characteristics. He was passionate about what he did. He loved what he did. One of his friends who worked for him said, Evan could sell ice cream to Eskimos. People just loved talking to him. They loved interacting with him. Evan was very hard working, worked really hard. When he was working in Chicago, his car was outside of his office, and he was too busy to worry about the car, and the car kept getting parking tickets, parking ticket after parking ticket, and he didn't even bother to deal with it. And then eventually, the city came and they towed the car. And they told him, they said, look, we're going to impound your car. We're going to crush and destroy your car unless you come and get it. Evan didn't have time because he was working so hard. He's like, just take the car. And that was the end of the car because he was working so hard. Evan was loyal. Evan was big on loyalty. He treated his employees really well. His sort of coaching tree, if you will, people that worked for him at these various companies over the years have gone on to incredible careers in business, and many of them will tell you that Evan was the one who had the most impact on their careers, taught them how to treat people, how to have a zest for life, how to be positive, how to be passionate about what you do. And Evan was fun. People liked to be with him. He liked to sell. He liked to go out to dinners. He liked to travel. He'd stay out late. He was a great guy to be with. Evan was generous, incredibly generous. People remember once when he was out somewhere and there were kids out with a lemonade stand, and Evan didn't just give them a quarter or $1 for a cup of lemonade. He bought the entire carton of lemonade, everything that they had left. He gave them $50 so they could go home. He was the guy he'd bring the big tray of drinks. If you were at the bar, he'd take you on the big trip. When my son Jamie turned 5, Jamie had a strange attraction to the band Green Day, even though he was just a little kid. And when it was Jamie's 5th birthday, Evan didn't just get him a Green Day CD or a Green Day poster. He got us tickets to the Green Day concert at the Garden. And so we went to the Green Day concert. Jamie was definitely the youngest kid at the concert that night. But that was kind of the guy that he was. See, he always made time for the family. Because no matter how successful he was, no matter how many friends he had, Evan always knew that it was family that was most important. He called my mom, who's here today, every single day of his life, no matter where he was. He was in China, he was in Thailand. He put me to shame because he called my mom, he called my dad every single day. He was my biggest supporter. He called me, he texted me, and I'm a lawyer. He didn't know much about the law, but he would say, hey, how are your cases going? And he'd say, what's your plan? What's happening with you? What are you going to do next? Are you good? He would always check in with me. And when our dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's years ago, my brother decided to run the Boston Marathon. This is a guy who never run more than a mile in his life. And he decided he was going to run the Boston Marathon for the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which he did. And he raised a whole lot of money for Parkinson's disease. That's the kind of guy he was. But he was getting on a little bit. He was into his late 30s, and he still didn't have a family of his own. And my mom had to kind of kick him in gear and say, look, if you want something of your own, you better start looking. And that's when he finally He found his beautiful, amazing wife, Suzanne, and had 3 absolutely beautiful children, Jacob, Sophie, and Sarah. So at this point, Evan's got it all, right? He's finally got the family that he wants. He's back in Boston. He's hanging out with his old Needham High friends. He's got the big job that he always wanted. He's at the pinnacle. And that's when he was diagnosed with cancer. He was 44 years old. And it was a lightning bolt that just came out of nowhere. It can happen to anybody, even healthy his whole life. He was diagnosed with cancer, and he fought it. He fought it. Boy, he fought it harder, and he lasted longer than anybody thought. He got on clinical trials, and he just wanted what was best for his kids. And he kept working for most of that time. We learned that he traveled a lot for his job, and even though he had stage 4 cancer in his bile duct, he'd be in the airport, and he couldn't even make it from the gate to the curb because he'd have to stop and sort of rest halfway through. But he was trucking. He was carrying on because for him it wasn't about himself. It was about his family and his legacy. But cancer can come for you, and it got him, and he passed in 2015 when he was 46 years old. And I miss him. I miss him a lot. I miss him every day. All the time, even today, when I want to tell him something that happened with my family or something happened with the Red Sox, and I pick up my phone and I want to text him, and I just can't. He's not there. And so I miss him, but he left a really incredible legacy. To this day, people, his old friends and people that he worked with, they contact me all the time and tell me what an impact Evan had on their life and their career. And stories of his incredible generosity, and that's so meaningful to me and my family. Needham was very special to Evan. Needham High School was very special to him. It got in his bones, so it got in my bones. And it stayed with him, and it shaped who he was. And so, I think Evan deserves this award not just because of his achievements in business, but because of who he was. His spirit, his generosity, and the impact that he had on so many people. So I think, if he was here and he'd give you a couple of takeaways from his life, I think he'd say a couple of things. I think what he would tell you is, look, he's like, your grades are important. We want you to work hard. But it's not the most important thing. You've got a long life ahead of you. You've got many, many years to leave your own mark. So if you didn't do great on a test this week, if you're not happy with your score that you get on the SAT, and maybe if you don't get into your first choice of a college, or even if you're not happy with your social situation, with your friends, maybe with your family, it's okay. Because where you are right now is not where you're going to end up. You've got years and years in a lifetime to make your own mark. You just got to keep it. Because, again, when Evan was sitting here in 1987, no one would have dreamed that he would have won a beautiful award like this with such distinguished folks to my right. Evan would also tell you, I think, that, look, it's not the words on your resume that count most and what defines you, but it's your relationships, it's the people that you know, it's your interactions. So spend time with those people, with your friends and your family. Those are the things that you're going to remember. Look, I don't remember a thing about a test that I took, or not much about classes I was in, but I sure remember moments from the football field, and I remember, late nights with my friends and trips with my family. That's the stuff. So that's what you have to really focus on and grab onto. Believe in yourself, he would say. He would say, don't follow the herd. Look, you don't have to do what everyone else is doing and wear what everyone else is wearing and go to the same schools that everyone else is going. Believe in yourself. You got a little spark in you, follow that voice. And I guess most of all, he would say it's going to sound a little bit like a cliche, but believe it. Take it from me. It's not. You got to live life to the fullest, and you got to enjoy life. Take those trips. Spend time with the people that you love. Take the trips with your family. Leave your own mark, because I got to tell you, you do not know when it's going to end.
Thank you so much for having us here.